welcome to the Hardison and Cochran podcast. In today's episode, North Carolina Workers' Compensation Board-Certified Specialist Attorney Ben Cochran discusses situations he has witnessed where an injured worker's workers' comp weekly benefit check was the wrong amount. Now, here's Ben Cochran.
When you're out of work receiving workers' comp benefits, how do they figure out how much you're entitled to? Well, they use your compensation rate. How do you know if that's been calculated correctly? Well, let's focus on the times that I've seen that they're not. That's the easiest way to do it, I think. So, first and foremost, what if you've only been there a month or 2 months and then you get injured? Well, at that point, you don't have enough wages to determine your compensation rate. You haven't been there for 52 weeks, which is how they determine your average weekly wage. So if you haven't been there but 2 months, you haven't been able to establish the wages to where it would be fair and reasonable to use 2 months. At that point in time, there are other ways that we can contend that you require a different compensation rate, more likely than not, a higher compensation rate, because you just haven't been there long enough. Second, and very common, they do not include overtime or bonuses. I see many a time to where the adjusters simply use a 40-hour work week to determine someone's compensation rate. That is not correct. It is your previous 52 weeks, which includes overtime and bonuses. Another situation is, what if you get a promotion in the middle of the year to where you were once at the beginning of the year making $15 an hour, and then towards the last 6 months up until your injury, you were making $25 an hour as a different position. Arguably, you are entitled to looking at what is fair and reasonable and an increase in your wages by focusing on the $25 an hour, because arguably that is more fair and reasonable to the injured employee and all parties involved. Because once they promoted you, your employer assumes the risk and liability of that higher position and those higher wages. The Industrial Commission looks to see what's fair and reasonable to both parties. Those are three very common circumstances to where we see the compensation rate being incorrect. If you question as to whether or not your wages are correct from workers' comp, give us a call. We'll look at the wages. We'll get the right documentation, and we'll determine if you're getting paid right.
We'd like to thank you for listening to the Hardison and Cochran Attorneys at Law podcast. If you would like a free consultation about you or a loved one's legal situation, please go to lawyernc.com. For a full list of episodes, please visit lawyernc.com/podcast.
Listening to this podcast does not create an attorney-client relationship between you and Hardison and Cochran. Hardison and Cochran does not accept new clients until obtaining a signed agreement. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be intended or taken as legal advice. If you have a legal matter, contact a licensed attorney in your state about your specific set of circumstances.